Hi there, and thanks for joining me again for NCIA's weekly episodes of NCIA Today. I'm your host, Bethany Moore, NCIA's Deputy Director of Communications, checking in with you every week on Fridays with updates on what's happening in the industry and here at NCIA. And not to sound like a broken record, but there's still time to help our efforts to pass the Safe Banking Act through the U.S. Senate. Please consider taking a few minutes to look up your senator's phone numbers and give them a call to either thank them for their support or to tell them why they should add their names to the list of co-sponsors. Check out our congressional scorecard on our website to see where your senators stand on this issue. Also, check out all the benefits for our newest top-tier membership level called Evergreen for policy-focused cannabis companies. Head to thecannabisindustry.org/join to learn more about our new membership packages, Evergreen, Blooming, and Seedling. Next, let's check in with NCIA's Deputy Director of Government Relations, Michelle Rutter-Freeberg, for the latest news out of Washington, D.C. Let's hear more. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for checking in with me again this week. Here we are in the month of June already, almost halfway through the year 2021, if you can believe it.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that we're already halfway through 2021. Time has become such a weird thing, but it's great to be back as always with you, Bethany.
You got it. Well, it's a great time to share the latest and greatest news from inside the Beltway and the long anticipated reintroduction of an important piece of legislation. Tell us all about it.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head, Bethany. Much anticipated, long awaited, but it is finally here. So, just last week in the House of Representatives, H.R. 3617 was introduced, and that's the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. You guys might remember it as the MORE Act. And you'll remember that bill, we've talked about it a number of times on this segment and in other places. But you'll remember that bill was actually voted on by the House of Representatives back in last Congress, just before it ended back in December of 2020, where it passed by a vote of 228 to 164. But you know how it is. New Congress starts, you got to do everything all over again, reintroduce all those bills, go through the process all over. And so that's where we are now. So like we mentioned, the bill just got reintroduced. So we're really happy about that. It was reintroduced by the same gentleman as before. That's House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler from New York. He was joined by about 6 or so of his Democratic colleagues as well as original co-sponsors. And the bill was referred to a number of committees, though. I think it's about 9 in total. In addition, that's including the referral, I think, to the Judiciary Committee. So definitely has a process to go through there. And again, just as a refresher for anybody who might not remember, the MORE Act is a fantastic bill. It would remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act, so descheduling cannabis entirely. But the core of the bill really seeks to undo the damage that was caused by the racially and economically disproportionate, enforcement of prohibition. And so to that end, the bill does things like establish a cannabis justice office to administer a program to reinvest resources in the communities that have been most harmed by prohibition. Also grants that would go towards women and minority-owned businesses. It also wants to eliminate the conflict that's going on right now between federal and state laws and a number of other different things. So again, really, really excited to see the bill be reintroduced. Definitely long awaited.
Wow, 9 committees. That's quite a few. Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely has a bit of a path to navigate around the halls of Congress. So since this bill is a reintroduction from the last Congress, is it exactly the same bill, or are there any notable differences in this version that our viewers should be aware of?
Yeah, really, really good question, Bethany. And so the thing people will want to take away from this is that for the most part, the bill is pretty much exactly the same as what passed in December. However, there are one change and one thing that stayed the same, I guess, that I would call people's attention to. So the first thing is this one provision that was put in right before passage back in December of 2020. And it was this small but impactful section. And this provision related to discrimination against victims of cannabis prohibition in the permitting process. So it was very, very antithetical to the bill's whole purpose, which is what I mentioned earlier, trying to repair some of the harms that the war on drugs has done. And so this little section, though, which pertained to applications for federal cannabis permits, stated that an application could be rejected and a permit denied if the Secretary of the Treasury found that the person, by reason of previous or current legal proceedings involving a felony violation, and it continues on. But the point of it being is that this provision basically said if you have a felony conviction, that we can deny you a federal permit, which again is totally against what we want to see when we're thinking about repairing some of the harms of the war on drugs and the effects that prohibition has had on various communities. And so, NCIA definitely brought this to the bill sponsors' attention before it made it to the floor, as well as other organizations did as well. During that time back in December, some of the sponsors and Congressman Neal, and in addition to some of the sponsors, came to the floor and said, publicly committed, we understand this is in here. It's kind of too late to take it out and to fix this, but we commit publicly and we commit on the floor of the House of Representatives that we will fix this. And so I'm happy to tell everybody that they were good to their word, that they did go back to the drawing board, and that provision got removed. So that is no longer in this version. And so we're really, really happy about that. We just got to make sure it stays out, right? We don't want to see that make its way back in somehow. And then the other thing I want people to be aware of is that the MORE Act includes language around tax, which is just such an important issue for so many of our members, and just any industry broadly is what are your taxes look like. And so want to call people's attention to the tax revision and more, which stayed the same. So in the past, in the version that passed in December, there was an initial 5% sales tax that graduated over the next few years up to 6, 7, up to 8%. And that's what we see in this version of the MORE Act as well. So those are the two things I would call people's attention to. But for the most part, other than those things, pretty much the exact same bill.
Very interesting. Yeah, thanks for staying on top of that. What are the next steps from here? And of course, what can NCIA members do to help?
Of course. Well, before we get to next steps, just when we're thinking about what are the next steps, it's important to, take a lay of the land. And so for context, important to remember that this bill did pass last December, but the calculus has changed a little bit now, right? The House is now actually more Republican than it was last session. So definitely you're going to need to build that support. And then over on the Senate side, the MORE Act actually hasn't been reintroduced. We're still all anxiously awaiting that legislation that Leader Schumer and Senators Booker and Wyden are working on. So I think it's important to mention that when we think about what's next. But what's next now is, like I mentioned, the bill has a number of committees it's been referred to. So it'll start its legislative process. And I know that from conversations that I've had on the Hill, that the lead sponsors certainly want to get moving on the bill. They're excited about it. This is an important topic. And so they're pushing for maybe a markup before August recess. So that would be pretty soon here now. And unsure which committee that markup would be. And obviously there's a number to choose from, but excited to get things kicked off. So we'll hopefully start the process there. And what can NCI members do to help? Of course, as always, we want you to remain engaged. So make sure you're calling your member of Congress on the House side and saying to them, we would really, really like you to co-sponsor this piece of legislation. Here's what it is. And of course, you can go to our website to find the write-up about the bill that I've published for everybody so they can see what it is and kind of have an idea of what to say. There's also tips on our website about what to say and how to get in touch with your members of Congress. But of course, ask for them to co-sponsor, tell them how important this is to you, tell a personal story if you have one. And as always, just remain engaged, but really glad to have been here to talk about this important piece of legislation with you today.
Great. Yeah, thanks again, Michelle. And thanks for keeping us all up to date on what's happening in Congress. And we'll check in with you again soon.
Sounds good. All right, guys, till next time.
Hi, Michelle. All right. Well, we're taking it easy in this week's episode so we can all catch up from the long holiday weekend, but there's still so much happening behind the scenes that you'll be hearing about soon. Stay tuned to hear more about NCIA's newest policy paper on the topic of medical cannabis research being released in the coming days, which you'll be able to download right from our website. Also, we hope you're tuning in to both of our weekly podcasts, including our newest effort called NCIA's Cannabis Minority Report. Check out the episodes on NCIA's website with host Khadijah Adams. You can also catch it live on NCIA's Facebook page every Monday morning or afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's wrap up this week's show with some reminders. Are you ready? I'm so ready for our Midwest Cannabis Business Conference, now September 22nd and 23rd in Detroit, Michigan, and the Eastern Cannabis Business Conference on December 7th and 8th in Baltimore, plus our 7th Annual Cannabis Business Summit and Expo, December 15th through 17th in San Francisco. Reach out now to learn more about opportunities to secure your booth on the expo floor. There's so much happening behind the scenes right now as we prepare to bring back our award-winning trade shows and get back to business safely. In the meantime, you can stay connected and inspired this summer with NCIA's weekly webinar series, which keeps you up to date on best practices and regulatory issues. Be sure to follow us on social media channels like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to check out all the great content and inspiration we're sharing. And if you're a member of NCIA, log into NCIA Connect and spark up a conversation with your fellow NCIA members and colleagues today. We'll see you next week.
So we're very proud to be NCIA members. We've been members for the last 3 years, and I gotta say, every event, every conference, every get together that's sponsored by NCIA is a good opportunity, not just to meet others in the industry, obviously, but really to talk about the industry as a whole, where it's going, where it's been, our challenges to date.
We feel really grateful to NCIA for including us in the educational tracks the last 3 years. We've been at every seed to sale and most of the shows on the West Coast.
Every time we're here, I always have a sense that it's not just another one of these industry conferences, that it's actually that it is the industry's lobbying arm, and that it's an organization that is protecting all of us and fighting for the legal future that we all need.
At the end of the day, the most important and impactful thing for us is the community. It's really about the people that NCIA brings together, and the events like this one that NCIA organizes for us to gather.
If you're in this industry, NCIA is trying to influence it positively for you. If you're not speaking up, if you're not participating in committees, you're missing out on a huge window. Everyone wants change. Well, this is one of the ways you do it.
You don't have to be a member of the NCIA. You could just do nothing and let them do everything for you and fix all the problems that need to be fixed for the industry to work properly, and you could just sit on the sidelines. That would be fine, but it'd be better if you were a member.